He's back! The man that cannot be held down. M. Night Shyamalan's latest movie, Knock at the Cabin, which is about a family who's visited by four strangers and are asked to make a choice. Choose one of your family to die, or the apocalypse will happen. Now, I, like most people, I think I have a love-hate relationship with M. Night. I was a huge fan of his earlier work, but then sort of his recent stuff over the last, say, decade or so, I have not been as thrilled with, to put it mildly. I mean, his last movie, Old, I just flat out hated. But he's always had interesting concepts. Usually his movies are drawn around things like connection, spirituality, religion, and this one is no different. Now, on the surface, I get how this story is a compelling idea. I mean, it delves into a series of impossible choices. I mean, it's basically this party game question out of one of those question books, sacrifice a loved one or the world ends. What would you do? It's designed to get a conversation going and to learn about how people would respond and react and what their sort of thought process is. Now, I know this is based on a novel called A Cabin at the End of the World, which I haven't read. However, when turning this into a narrative movie, I think it requires to go deeper and explore the characters and their own deep-seated beliefs and fears than what it actually does here. I mean, this movie tries to be deep, but it kind of comes off as sort of quasi-intellectual. I mean, it's like he didn't quite grasp how to take the concept here and then turn it into what would be a compelling drama, because this never really dives below the surface, and instead it just sort of tips its hand constantly at every turn. It reminds me of a first-time writer wrote it, and that is not fair. I know that. But everything about this movie just feels so surface level. I mean, the strangers have like these weird handmade weapons. Why? They could all just have knives and it wouldn't really change anything. I mean, they perform these very specific rituals throughout the course of the movie. Why? I mean, it doesn't seem to serve the reason for them being there, and it kind of goes against that they're just everyday people. So why have it? Why is it that every time something bad happens, there is a news program on TV talking about it at that exact moment with a whole bunch of these live broadcasts outlining it specifically? And by the way, I don't know why he keeps insisting on these live broadcast type storytelling methods. I mean, yes, it worked in Signs and Unbreakable, but this one is just more in line with The Happening in how ridiculous they are. And it just takes away from the story and makes it less believable than it already is. But getting back to why these particular things are added to the movie, it kind of just feels like they're there because they seem cooler, because there's no real other explanation as to why you would need them. And that kind of goes along with the problem of this movie, which is that the movie never really gives the couple the opportunity to weigh the gravity of the decisions that's in front of them, because it handles it so clumsily. I mean, at first, it's presented in such a way that excuses them from any real choice, because the four forcefully enter their home and then tie them up. So you're not going to get them to choose anything that you want them to choose. I mean, I get that they're trying to make the four strangers sympathetic and as real people, but they go about it in such a way that no one would believe them without proof in the way that they kind of execute it. All right, one of the things that kept bothering me about this movie is they sort of expect this couple to immediately believe them and what they're saying. But the way these four came together was that they happened to each experience the same visions and then sort of found each other online and slowly came together. So in the world of the movie, it took them maybe years of them having these specific visions for them to finally realize that there was something to them and that these visions were real. So why would these strangers who have just met them in the last few minutes just completely turn over faith in what they believe? It just doesn't make any sense. So instead of getting this relatable desperation out of them, you end up getting this pretty hard fanaticism which then sort of shuts down any deep conversations that might have been had with the family in question. Then, as the movie goes on, it jumps from that to this overwhelming evidence that what they're saying is true. I mean, it's hard to deny what's going on when planes are literally falling out of the sky. And so the result of the movie is you know how it's going to play out from moment to moment, which for an M. Night movie, that's kind of a strange thing. The shame here is where this movie could have been great is if it fully leaned into this sort of cerebral movie that it seems to have wanted to be. You know, a deep dive into the thoughts and the fears of the people involved, and then weigh that against the four strangers and the fear and trepidation as to what they feel they have to do. And them slowly earning this couple's trust over the course of the film and trying to convince them of what they see. But they don't do that. Instead, it devolves into a lot of ceremonial killing and dogmatic, cryptic lines, and it uses this sort of attempt to shock the audience with these grand apocalyptic sequences that they see on TV, as opposed to slowly enticing the couple and getting them to ask these questions of themselves that these four have already gone through. At the end of the day, the movie is shot well. I mean, the man knows how to shoot a movie. That is for sure. You can't accuse this man of not going for it. And I do really appreciate that. And the performances are all really strong. And once again, he has a child actor that doesn't make me think of a child actor. The only real issue I have with the style is it feels maybe a little too slick at times. I mean, I get that this is a single location, so creativity is a must. But it also feels like every shot had this mandate to call attention to just how cool each one was, which, hey, listen, I love cool shots, but sometimes it kind of gets a little distracting and a little tiring if each one is trying to outdo the previous one. This movie is certainly one of his better ones in recent years, but depending on where you fall on his filmography, that may not be saying too much. I'd give this a C+, but let me know what you think.